Mealtime battles may feel like they are never going to end. We just want our kids to eat healthy so they can grow strong and do what they're meant to do. However, sometimes we're frustrated and wondering if they're actually eating enough nutrients or if their picky eating is affecting their health. In today's video, we'll talk about two strategies, two things that you can pay attention to see if your child's picky eating is actually affecting your health. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for joining me. I'm Dr. Lim, founder of Generational Wellbeing. So let's talk about those two things that you can pay attention to and see if your child's picky eating is affecting your health. The first one we're going to talk about is recurrent digestive issues. So if your child is having recurrent episodes of abdominal pain, bloating, gassiness, constipation, or diarrhea, it may be an indication that they're either getting too much or too little of a thing, which is very common with picky eaters, right? Because they have those 5 things that they want to eat all the time and they say no to everything else. And over time, that those particular foods are either not providing enough fiber and then they end up constipation, or they're eating too much of certain foods with too much fiber, and that's causing gas and bloating and recurrent episodes of diarrhea. Or they're just eating foods that their bodies are not tolerating anymore and they can experience all of the symptoms. So the number one thing is constipation. We see constipation a lot in clinic. And the number one reason for constipation is foods that do not have enough fiber in them. So we're seeing kids who love all of the processed foods. Most of the processed foods have 0 fiber in it, or they're drinking too much milk. It's like my kid wants to drink milk only. They're drinking like 3-4 bottles of milk a day. Too much milk can also contribute to constipation. Or they're eating a particular fruit. Sometimes I've seen kids who they love bananas. And bananas is one of the fruits that if you're eating a lot of, it can cause constipation as well. Those are the reasons. So as you start paying attention, and if you notice your kid is having recurring episodes of constipation, they may not be eating enough fiber. So what are the fiber foods recommended? As far as the fruits go, we recommend like the peaches, prunes, plums, pears, or you can have beans, peas, and whole grains. Those are options that are high in fiber that you can incorporate in your child's diet so that they can help the abdominal pain and constipation, because quite often most kids will present as abdominal pain and it's actually constipation because that poop is sitting there and causing pain. Now, on the other hand, if your kid is having way too much diarrhea, you may have a kid in your hands who wants to eat all of those foods that are listed that are good for constipation. They just eat fruits all day. At any given time, your kid is actually eating peaches or pears or plums, or they just love prunes and eating all the stuff that the fiber in it is a lot, and then it's causing bloating and gas and then recurrent episodes of diarrhea. So if that is your situation, then we may have to kind of balance it out, where we're balancing out the fiber, or we're not eating way too much fiber that's leading to diarrhea, and we're having some sort of a balance there. Or you may have a kid in your hands who's just intolerant to some foods. Some kids are having intolerance to milk products, right? And that can cause bloating and can cause either constipation or diarrhea too. So if it's just my kid just loves to eat mac and cheese all the time, and that's all they'll eat. They'll eat mac and cheese all the time and they'll drink milk all day and stuff. You may have a kid in your hands who has just recurrent abdominal pain and constipation. So before you want to implement any changes, I usually would recommend that pay attention maybe for like a week or two, where you're kind of doing a food diary to see what foods they're eating and how the foods that they're eating is affecting their body. So let's say they had something for dinner, you write it down, and then if they had abdominal pain, immediately after or 2 hours later, you write that down too. If they happen to be constipated within a few days, you're writing down what they're eating, and we're also writing the symptoms they're having after eating those foods. When you have jotted down those foods and the symptoms, it'll give you an idea of where your child lies. It'll give you an idea if we're eating way too much fruit, so we're backing off, or if she's drinking too much milk, or back it off, or eating too many bananas. So it'll give you an idea. So when you're making changes unique that will help your child's situation, because it could be a different thing for one child and a different thing for another child. And so the second thing that I usually look out where your child's picky eating may be affecting the health is if your kid is having recurrent infections. It's getting colder now. We're getting into the colder seasons. We're seeing a lot of cough and congestion, recurrent ear infections, sore throat, headaches, fevers. If your kid is like one of those kids where as soon as the weather changes, they are getting an infection with any virus that's going through daycare or schools. They're saying, pick me, and right here, they're getting those infections. You may want to start paying attention yet again, like what is going on and why is my kid having recurrent ear infections, recurrent colds, and what can I do to help my kid? So I would usually start out with what you're eating, especially for breakfast. Unfortunately for us, most breakfast meals have high sugars, and sugars have shown to actually weaken your immune system's response to infection within 20 minutes of eating or consuming the sugars, and this effect can last up to 5 hours. So imagine giving your kid, let's say, even a cereal, a breakfast muffin, a donuts that's high in sugar for breakfast, and then you send them to school 20 minutes later, right? So their immune system is weak. So guess what's going to happen? If they come in contact with any rhinovirus, enterovirus, or anything that's going through daycare or the schools, your child's body is not up to the fight. So eventually they pick up that infection. The next day, same thing. We are really dampening or weakening the immune system and sending them to a war zone, so to speak. We know daycares and schools, especially the kids are not washing their hands. They're not covering their mouths when they're coughing. And so that's a high risk environment where it's just like the sharing the love as I talk to my patients. So it's just besides the hand washing and teaching them how to cover their nose and making sure they're clean and not touching stuff and touching their faces. We also want to make sure that before sending them to school, we're giving them foods that will actually support the immune system. What am I talking about? Foods that are high in vitamin C. Vitamin C really helps to fight or build the immune system. Foods that are high in zinc and iron and probiotics, quercetin. Those are all foods that you can incorporate in your child's breakfast before sending them to school. So whether it's like a probiotic yogurt, you're adding fruits like blueberries and strawberries in it, those blueberries, and they all have high vitamin C in it, or you're giving them oranges and stuff, things in their breakfast meals that are high in zinc, or if you're doing the high fiber brand whole grain cereals and stuff that will have zinc and fiber and all of those things to help boost your immune system. So when they're going to school, when they're in that environment where they're exposed to different viruses, at least your child's immune system is geared up to fight those infections. So what are we doing then to help with the infection part? One, we're reducing or trying to replace those breakfast options that are high in sugars that could potentially reduce your child's immune system, and replacing them with healthier options that are high in whether it's vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, quercetin, omega, and probiotics. I will continue on with 2 more tips in my next video. So check out my next video that will be coming up soon to give you other options of things that may be affecting your child's health, especially if your child is a picky eater. Once more, thank you again for listening. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and tune in for more tips on how to help your picky eater. Thank you for listening.